At Kroger Pharmacy, CARE is making it easy to get vaccinated. CARE is helping you stay protected from flu, COVID, and RSV. Seasonal vaccines are available 7 days a week with evening hours. CARE is giving you a shot at staying healthy this season. Walk in whenever is best and get multiple vaccines in one visit at your local Kroger Pharmacy. So come and get the protection you need while protecting those around you. Kroger Health, a world of care is in store. Visit Kroger.com/vaccines for more. Restrictions and exclusions apply. See site for details.
This is a story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Second and Saints post-game show after the Saints beat Atlanta. Crazy. RIZZ up, right? What a difference a week makes. All those fun stuff. Ross, my man, how you doing this evening?
Good. Glad to be here talking about a win, man. It's been a long time. It's been since September that we've talked about a dub. So I'm glad for it. And it was a resilient one. It was a good one. I'm excited to dive into this one, man. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. You know, Earth, Wind, and Fire. Do you remember September? Like, that's what reminds. Like, that's kind of like where I'm at right now. But man, what a job by this team today. You know, beating Atlanta, upsetting Atlanta. We both picked Atlanta. I mean, both picked New Orleans. Excuse me. We both picked New Orleans to win this one. We thought that riding the energy this week and riding the interim head coach, all that other stuff was, going to. Do New Orleans good here. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, goodness, did he come alive? I think what I appreciate most about this, and I wrote this in my post-game column on Saints News Network, every single leader stepped up in a big way to be able to make this win happen. And when it was all said and done, the defense did twice they got it done to close out this game. They had a lead all game, fourth quarter lead. They didn't give it up. All this other stuff. You got some gree magic from Younghoe Koo missing his field goals, but that's what I appreciate most is the leaders coming together, and they are the ones that are leading the charge here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a big part of this. And I think the biggest thing for me was watching them manage adversity. Darren Rizzi made 2 promises during his introductory press conference as the interim head coach. He said that he was going to promise passion and he was going to promise a team of fighters. And you definitely got both of those in this game. You got a lot of fight and you got a lot of passion from this New Orleans Saints team to the point where they did something we haven't seen them do all season, which is go into the fourth quarter with a lead and leave the game with a win. Colin Saunders after the game was talking about, Joe Woods, the defensive coordinator, showed them 8 games this season that they either led in the fourth quarter or were within 1 score of the fourth quarter and did not walk away with a win. Demario Davis apparently challenged the defense saying, like, if we go in with a lead in the fourth quarter, it's got to be ball game. And they showed up and they did that despite the fact that the offense, 5 of their 6 possessions in the second half were all 3 and outs. And so the defense was on the field a lot and they still got it done.
Yeah, and look, DeMario pulled everybody together as the fourth quarter started, and gave him a little bit more juice there. And look, we were wondering how Joe Woods would call this game. We know that there's some things that this team has got to clean up. The big run to Bijan Robinson, some of the penalties Alante had, all these different things that they had. But look, their pressure packages were definitely different here. You play Cam Jordan more than 10 snaps. He gets 1 of 3 sacks on the day. Chase Young, when the game matters most, he gets a huge sack on Kirk Cousins and a strip on that one as well. So again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, oh my God, 1 win, we're back up and all this other stuff. Because Ross and I already talked about that. Like just them winning, it's like, pump the brakes. Like, it's exciting and the energy's there, all this other stuff. But, there's still a lot of work to be done. And like Riz said in his post-game speech, which you can just see the energy, like the difference in this team with him there in just a week is ridiculous. It's redonkulous, actually, is what I would say. But, just as challenges, can we replicate that next week? And look, it's just a refreshing to be able to see a lot of things come together for this team. Again, we can nitpick. We can say there were some certain things that we just didn't like. But when it was all said and done, the defense got it done. The offense came out with a pretty good start. I said a hot start. I told you it was going to be a close game in this one. I think I picked 27 for the Saints, and, I thought it was 27-24 or something, but it ended up being a 3-point game here. But, New Orleans, it's an impressive victory and a nice little upset for a Superdome crowd that I was actually a little bit shocked was more people in the stands than I thought. And it wasn't Falcons fans. A lot of them were there, but,
Yeah, I thought that they were loud too. Like, this was a loud New Orleans Saints Superdome again. And I loved hearing Darren Rizzi after the game saying that he wants to get the Superdome back to what it used to be and all these other things. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it just feels like there are those moments where you just make the right choice. And it feels like the New Orleans simply made the right choice. And look, moving on from Dennis Allen was a must, but the decision to appoint Darren Rizzi, at least through one game, looks very wise. And like the New Orleans Saints, in my opinion, can lose out for the next 7 games. I don't want to see that, but they could lose out for the next 7 games. But if Darren Rizzi continues to get that kind of effort, that kind of performance, has that much of a connection with the importance of this team to its city and all the things that he shows, then I think that like that's a good display no matter what. Like that's a good position for Darren Rizzi to be in. And I think that that's one of the things that maybe is one of the bigger takeaways for me in this game is just how much you could see Darren Rizzi in this New Orleans Saints team. You saw the passion, you saw the fight, you saw how absolutely pumped he was all throughout the game. Everything that video clip, I think Kendall Duncan shared it of him at the blocked field goal and stuff like that. Like we haven't seen anything like that display of emotion on the sideline and all that. And then him talking after the game about how he like ripped Peyton Turner a new one during the game and everything like that for celebrating too early and all that. Like he felt like a head coach, and it felt like the type of coach that the New Orleans Saints needed. So, man, I think like you said, like this is one game. There's no need to start, talk about this team winning out and being a playoff team or anything like that. But I don't think that this is the situation to where you can finally actually say that the results, that you have to look past the results. And if you look past the results, I think you saw a lot of things you liked about this New Orleans Saints team, in particular, its ability to manage adversity, which is something we haven't seen from the New Orleans Saints in quite some time.
Yeah, and what I wrote in here and put is it shows that the right process with the right talent can get you the results that you need. I think that's the biggest thing. And Alvin Kamara was talking. I'm trying to find it. He said unity. He said buy-in. He said that a couple other things. You're getting some swag back, energy, details, fundamentals, and everybody being accountable to each other. And it's just one of those things where it's like, for me, it's like, well, why wasn't that happening? You know what I mean? Why does it take this situation to happen? And of course, we've talked about this on other past pods about some of the things that have happened and all this other stuff. But again, the team is responding to Darren Rizzi. They know what to expect from him. I thought it was hilarious the way he kicked off his press conference talking about literally getting the head coach's toilet clogged. Like, he says it's going to be a crappy day, pun intended. I'm like, man, this dude is like also unfiltered. And I mean, again, this is a personality that New Orleans can get behind too.
Right.
Like, again, you see why the players love him. And now fans, like, in just one little game, beating Atlanta, doing all this, like, he's instantly won over the fans. Like, I just feel that way. And, for him, man, it's a big moment. He gets obviously a game ball. The whole building gets a game ball. Being down to the equipment room. Alvin Kamara breaks the record, and they look good. I hated the fact that they took Taysom's touchdown away, that 88-yard connection, because they came out like gangbusters. I'm like, I don't know about this Foster Moreau penalty. There was another penalty, a couple on Alontae. I just like I didn't really care for, but again, this is a good thing in like an infectious attitude, I guess, if you will. And look, can this sustain next week? I think that's the biggest thing. Riz said, we'll see you back on Wednesday. That's pretty awesome that he would tell the players, okay, we'll see you Wednesday. And that's indicative on what the work they put in. But, can this sustain? Can they get another win? Can they stack a win? Because they got the Browns next week.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot going on in that game too. I mean, you got the Jameis Winston return to the Superdome as the Cleveland Browns quarterback and everything like that. And as you know, when it comes to Jameis Winston, he could come out and have this incredible game. He can come out and have an incredulous game. Like, you just never know what you're going to get from Jameis. And so it's not going to be easy. And of course, they've got Nick Chubb back and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So like, that's not helpful because you still saw the Saints run defense struggle, gave up over 180 rushing yards in this game, 5.7 a clip in this one. So, still some things that this New Orleans Saints team has to iron out and get better at and all that. And they've got a talented Cleveland Browns team on the way that's no longer being held back by Deshaun Watson. So I think you got to figure out like what you look to build off of from this. But I think there's a lot of things that you can build off from it. I thought it was good to see the offense and the play calling kind of back to what we expect, a lot more motion. Wouldn't say that it was as much as we've seen in the first two games, but still better there. Them being able to utilize their run game all the way down to the end of the game throughout, because they were either in the lead or at least comfortable when it came to it. That kind of gave them access to their offense. The mix-in of Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill, the aggression of going for it on 4th and 1 early on. I know that they didn't get to it, but John, we talked to some players in the locker room, and a lot of the players in the locker room that I spoke to about it said that like it wasn't the fact that they turned it over, it was the fact that Rizzi gave them the chance. Like that was the takeaway from that situation, was the confidence that he had in the players, and they wanted to make good on that. And that kind of set a tone of this kind of back and forth reciprocity between the players and the coach. And that was a relationship that really mattered here all throughout this game. So look, it's tough to go into the NFL and win your first game as a head coach. It's even tougher when you have to take over in the middle of the season to get it done. This is a special win for New Orleans. It doesn't punch their ticket to a Super Bowl or anything like that. Right. But man, this is what the New Orleans Saints needed at this time to avoid the longest losing streak in a Benson era. That's huge. That is huge for this team. So I'm glad that they were able to get out of that rut.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, you just stop the bleeding, the gash in the wound, all this other stuff. Like, that's got to be a good feeling. And of course, see him celebrate. And I know Steve, the people was like, oh, you're still tied with the Panthers, all that just stuff. Like, yeah, I get it. But, circumstances have changed in this. And look, I think there are some returns today. Like, the return of Will Harris was big. Like, this dude played that little hit stick that he had on the sideline. Like, man, what a play. Kevin Austin Jr. and that toe tap, like, work he did on the sideline. Mm-hmm. I mean, a guy that, only had 2 catches for, 36 yards, but man, they were big catches. Right. And so I think when you look at that, and then Marquez Valdes-Scantling, like, people were really dreading the wide receivers that this team was rolling out, but they were able to still be honest with the run. And I love the fact that Clint Kubiak on 3rd and 4 had a play that just aggressive, like, go in the game. Like, that's the thing. And if you don't end the game, put it on your defense. And Tyron got a big, huge pick before that. They had a chance. And Alvin, I mean, he came in and he sighed like he knew. And the thing is what I loved about that is Alvin's like, I'm sorry, I just put the defense back on there. Like, Alvin was just so, like, he's the walking, shining example of accountability in there. Mm-hmm. And RIZZ said that, like, he made him a captain. It wasn't like typically the players vote on a captain.
That's a player thing. Yeah.
Darren Rizzi is the one that made Alvin Kamara captain, because he said he practices, exactly, and plays exactly, and all this other stuff. Like, why would you not make him the captain? But man, it's just crazy. Like they said, how much a week changes inside the building. And again, can it keep going? We'll see. But man, a lot of returns. Talise Fuanga got hurt, but he ended up coming back into the game. Jordan Howden got hurt with shoulder injury. He ended up coming back into the game. Only player that I think that didn't come back was Pete Warner with that hand injury. Mm-hmm. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But relatively healthy, being that you had kind of the deck stacked against you.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, they stand the chance now next week to potentially get Nephi Sewell back in the mix. They could potentially have Eric McCoy back, unless they want to wait until his typical return timeline, which was going to be against the Rams. That, like, there's a couple different ways that they can go here. So the team has the ability to compete. And I think that's all you wanted to see from them. Win or lose, could they compete? And I thought you absolutely saw that in this matchup. What was I going to mention? Oh, I was going to mention Alvin Kamara when he was at the podium and he said that was the lamest thing I've ever done in a football game. Yeah. I thought like just the humility of that, right? I mean, we know Alvin
telling the
to
coach.
be right. Yeah. We know Alvin to be a good barometer for where the team is because of his just I don't know. He's just a very truthful person. Doesn't really lie. Doesn't really sugarcoat stuff. And then you see that compared to Darren Rizzi, and you can see both those the alignment between those two. And it's like, yeah, no wonder why they made him a team captain, right, for the rest of the season. Cam Jordan called it a duh moment when it was done, because it's like, yeah, of course he should be a team captain. And so yeah, no, I just thought that there were a lot of really good showings here. I thought Derek Carr played a pretty good game, especially downfield. I thought he was excellent downfield. There were some throws that were still him in those out routes, man, like just can't get ahead of those out routes for whatever reason and stuff like that. But, still some timing things and all that. But I thought the line protected well, despite a little bit of mixing and matching on the line. Oli Udoh having to go in for Taliese Fuanga for a little while. Nick Saldiveri already being in for Lucas Patrick at left guard and all that. But I thought they held up fine. My biggest thing is, can you next game put it together on offense for a full 4 quarters? Because just watching the offense kind of teeter off in that second half was a little concerning. They got what they needed. And look, one of the times where they teetered off and had that 3 and out, it was the third down that you mentioned with the Alvin Kamara drop and stuff like that. So everything was right that needed to be there in an in-game situation. You just had the drop, unfortunately. But on top of everything that happened today, especially around Alvin Kamara, lest we forget, he becomes the all-time rushing yards leader for the team at 6,544 rushing yards. Really heartwarming moment of him getting the ovation from the crowd and everything. You could just see how much this city and this team means to Alvin. And then now you're seeing it reflected in a really bold and just kind of outwardly displayed way from Darren Rizzi. I'm sure the same was true for Dennis Allen, but for Darren Rizzi, like, it's just out there in the open and he just wears his heart on his sleeve. And so it's really cool to kind of see that and to see how that fed back into this team's performance on Sunday.
Yeah, it's just like getting the results. I mean, he's a passionate dude, but I mean, he's just also brings the accountability piece that obviously is lacking, you know what I mean, in this locker room. And it's things that make you wonder. And of course you can't go back and change anything, but now you've got an opportunity here if you're Darren Rizzi, because again, I kind of said, if you can go 5-3 down this stretch, then you have to really look at him. I think at best they can do 4-4, but if they play like today and they can figure some things out offensively, maybe it's a little bit better. You have a schedule that could be a little bit favorable in some aspects. I mean, you got 2 more at home, then you got to play the Giants. That's another one. So, I mean, realistically, they could go on a run if they can get past next week and then, the bye week, and they got the Rams and then the Giants. But again, it's just refreshing to see, all the things come together. And look, Kamara, when he got his contract extension, everybody kind of just knew, like, this is where he wanted to be. We told you guys that, I think, back in training camp when this was a thing, or even in
minicamp, mandatory minicamps. Yeah.
That was always the goal, is Kamara wanted some assurances that he was their guy and he's getting all the touches to support that. And then, to make sure that they have a little bit of a commitment with him. And so again, it's great to see Alvin do that. I mean, shoot, this past 7 seasons or 8 seasons, just so many different moments that he had that you just can remember, especially in the Superdome. So great thing for him to be able to set that record in front of the Superdome crowd. And I was really, again, surprised to see how many fans were there, forcing some false start penalties, just the energy around it, just the entire building. Like, a 2-7 team doesn't have that kind of energy. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not really what it is. But shout out to those Saints fans who came in, and whether it was Atlanta, whether you wanted to see Alvin Kamara break the record or you were celebrating DA getting fired, it doesn't matter. It works. So
it worked for sure. I enjoyed some of the things that they changed up over on defense too. We saw a little bit more like zone coverage on third downs, which I thought was smart because a lot of times over the course of the past few weeks, you've seen the Saints kind of get torn up on third downs when they go to their man-to-man looks, which is what they typically live in. But the crossing routes and stuff like that, those man beaters and everything, like those are always tough. The pass rush was active, 3 sacks. You mentioned 2 forced fumbles in this game. John, we've talked for years about this team not being able to force fumbles at the quarterback, not just not finish plays at the quarterback, but not force fumbles at the quarterback. We saw Cam Jordan vintage pushing back, walking back the tackle into and then being able to dive over the tackle to get to Kirk Cousins. 24, I think, career sacks now against the Atlanta Falcons, the most of any single player against a single team and everything. And so I just wanted to highlight that too, that like, it's not just like passion and hype and excitement and swagger and all these other things that got the Saints to this better place where they can get back in the win column. But there were some schematic changes, some game plan differences, things that they did and adjusted and changed to make sure that they were able to go out there and compete and win that football game. So it's not just the emotion of the moment. There were some concrete changes that worked for this New Orleans Saints team.
Yeah, and I want to get more into those, but we will do that right after a word from our sponsor.
At Kroger Pharmacy, CARE is making it easy to get vaccinated. CARE is helping you stay protected from flu, COVID, and RSV. Seasonal vaccines are available 7 days a week with evening hours. CARE is giving you a shot at staying healthy this season. Walk in whenever is best and get multiple vaccines in one visit at your local Kroger Pharmacy. So come and get the protection you need while protecting those around you. Kroger Health, a world of care is in store. Visit Kroger.com/vaccines for more. Restrictions and exclusions apply. See site for details.
Hey folks, John Hendricks here, Second and Saints. Wanted to talk to you quickly about Underdog because it is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Compete against other players by just selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. This season, Underdog is going to be running a special promo or bonus almost every single day, like profit boosts, discounts, or free picks. Plus, all new users get a free pick. You could win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like passing yards, interceptions, touchdowns, and much more. Create entries with all football selections or mix and match across your favorite sports. Underdog puts the power to cash out in your hands. Now you can either keep riding with your entry or tap the Win Now button to cash out whenever you want. And with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose. With Underdog's Double Flex option, you can even take 2 L's and still have your entry to be a win. So go download the app today and use code SECONDSAINTS to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's code SECONDSAINTS. Now here comes the legal jargon. Must be 18 or older, 19 and older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 and older in Colorado for some games, 21 and older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Back here on Second and Saints, John Hendricks alongside Ross Jackson. Ross, before we went to break, you're talking about defensively some of the schematics that had changed in there. Before I guess you can kind of dive into that a little bit further. I guess I'd call out a few performances. I think Ugo Amadi played a really good game. That tackle at the end of the game too, to kind of preserve everything. But like, here's a guy. I'm gonna sound like Chris Collinsworth. Here's a guy that was on the team last year, someone on the practice squad, and obviously he's on the practice squad again. Just kind of one of those vets that have been around, and then he finally gets his opportunity, and with Alante being the definitive guy outside, he's playing more in the slot. But man, what a job that he was able to do today. Again, I got to mention Chase Young. I thought he was playing extremely well. Will Harris is another one that I really liked seeing him. And look, I know Tyron had a couple of moments where, maybe it wasn't the best of his stuff, and he's going to be the first one to point that out. But man, that pick on Cousins was a vintage Tyron Matthew Honey Badger moment where he just reads everything. But, you talked about some of the defensive changes. Elaborate a little bit more on what kind of you saw and what maybe Joe Woods changed on this one.
Yeah. I'll start with Tyrann Mathieu, actually, because I felt like he played a little bit more away from the line of scrimmage more often than playing up against the line of scrimmage, which I think was a bit of a better path for him in this one. He talked about how he doesn't really play a lot in the post. And when he means the post, what he's talking about is the middle of the field where a post route would attack. That's where that comes from. And so you're looking at a player that typically is the, roam and hound the line of scrimmage kind of a safety. And in this game, and really throughout the season, I think it's over 70% of the time he's been dropping deep to the middle of the field. This game, he got to roam a little bit more, but then was also still playing away from the line of scrimmage, which put him into better coverage situations, better position to break on balls, things like that. You saw the one that he intercepted. He almost had another one earlier on in the game because of that as well. So that was a big part of it. Will Harris getting to play down closer to the line of scrimmage. You saw his sort of active nature there, his big hits there. He had the one missed tackle that he would love to have back, I'm sure, up against Bijan Robinson as he broke it for 37 yards for one of the Falcons scores. But outside of that, I thought that the safety play was really strong. The corners and everything still kind of played to their typical game. I think I'm with you. Some of those penalties on Alante just felt weak and everything. But, one of the things that they did still in coverage, though, is that they switched over to a little bit more zone on third downs. The Saints were getting beat on those crossing routes a lot in man coverage on third down. Saw a lot of 4-man rushes as opposed to, overloads and blitzes and stuff like that on third down. I think that allowed the defense to be able to drop back and then, kind of ball hawk a little bit, try to make some plays and everything. And it paid off. I mean, the Falcons converted only 5 of their 14 third downs in this game. Not much better than New Orleans, who converted 5 of their own of 13 third downs. We were just talking about all the 3 and outs that New Orleans had. You saw Atlanta fall victim to a lot of that as well. And then I thought that the pass rush just felt, I don't know if this makes sense, but it felt more simplified almost. Seemed like there was a lot less kind of like countering and what do you call them? Twists and stunts and all this other stuff. And they just kind of got to go out there and try to be better than the guy in front of them. And on 3 particular plays, they were much better than the guy in front of them. And 2 of them were almost, one of them was a big time game-changing play. The other one was almost a game-changing play. I mean, it all worked out. And so I really liked what we saw from this New Orleans Saints defense of just allowing players to play a little bit more to their strength than playing to the scheme strength. You don't have you don't have every piece of talent that you once had to be able to play to the scheme strength at the moment. So being able to go out there and allow the players to play to their strengths, I think ended up making a pretty big impact in this game. And then Ugo, career highs in both tackles for loss and total tackles in this game, none bigger than that one, where he not only tackled Ray McLeod, but kept him in bounds, allowing the clock to run out. Huge moment for Ugo.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were talking about the defensive line, like we play more zone too. I don't know how many times because I have to go back and watch, but then I saw like Colin Saunders dropping back in coverage, then Carl Granderson dropping back in coverage, and he almost got his hand on one of those and stuff. And so it's just kind of one of those things where, again, it's a little simplified, but we're sitting here looking at it, it's like, by God, that's Peyton Turner's music. Like this guy, he ended up becoming like the talk of the game, not because of the sack fumble thing that he had, the strip sack, but what happened with Darren Rizzi, which if you don't know, Rizzi has a stinger history on his shoulder, and so he said that Peyton Turner hit him on the shoulder in celebration, and it caused him to lose all of his like balance and stuff. So that's why it looked like he was having a good time on bourbon at the post game and stuff. So, but look, I'm with you. I think simplified. Again, sometimes when you get some of these defensive coordinators, I think complexity can be a problem, because when it's complex, you have one person having to know 18 different assignments. I'm just, obviously I'm exaggerating here, but when you simplify it and just say, hey, this is what you need to do. You need to go beat your man and then go get to the quarterback and then just play your assignments, whether that's zone, whether that's man, whatever the case may be. I mean, it works. It worked this game. I mean, the Falcons had scored 58 points in the past 2 games coming into this one, and they only put up 17. I mean, granted, Younghoe Koo, I can't believe he went 1 of 4. One
That's the first time
by John
career.
Ridgeway. Yeah, in the Superdome of all places.
Right. Jeez, man. Yeah.
You were saying first time in his career, what?
That was the first time that he had ever missed 3 field goals in his career. Now, again, like to your point, one of those was blocked.
Yeah.
So really, he missed 2 field goals and then the other one's blocked. But still, it's 3 missed field goals, first time in his career. And actually, that was the end of my Younghoe Koo curse. I have never seen Younghoe Koo in person miss a field goal, and today he missed 3.
Man, well, hey, keep doing what you're doing regarding that. That's one thing you can keep doing what you're doing. I was dumbfounded, like, and I know people are like, well, where was that in week 4? But just the fact that Koo's first kick was wide, and then you get the block before halftime, like that was a huge momentum swing because the Falcons were going to go put some points on the board, and the Saints got it in the third quarter, and then at the end, just hitting the goalpost. I mean, or the crossbar. I mean, this is crazy to think that the Saints would get that benefit because they don't typically get that benefit ever.
For real.
So, but
For real. Yeah,
look, you'll take it.
I talked to a player in the locker room. I talked to a player in the locker room that said exactly that. He was like, yo, stuff like that never happens for us.
Yeah. No, we know for sure. Oh man. Let me grab this one too, because I think it is something just worth bringing up too. Is shout out to Trevor Penning. We've talked about him. We've said him in the past several episodes, just kind of like, again, this was one of our biggest concerns coming into this, and we weren't sure, but man, I tell you what, Trevor Penning, I don't think he's really a liability at this point. I think he's playing pretty well. And again, I kind of mentioned that when we talked about the direction, and of course, with direction of this team is unclear, I guess is the best way to say. But they do have a pretty good offensive line if Penning continues to play like that. You know what you get in Fuanga. You got McCoy and Ruiz. They need to get probably a better depth plan, but really you just need a left guard. And I think this offensive line can be pretty good, and they're showing it when they can run the football. And Trevor Penning in pass pro and, in run support, we knew he's good in run support, but I think I'm more impressed with the way he's holding up in pass pro right now.
Yeah, I can give you some numbers on that too. Next Gen Stats has it so that last year at left tackle, he surrendered an 18.2% pressure rate. That's really high. So 18.2% pressure rate. This year, going into this game, we don't have the updated numbers with this matchup, but he didn't seem to give up a lot in this game, John. I didn't really see a lot, at least. But so far this year, he has more than halved that percentage. He's down to 7.4% pressure rate coming into this game. Really, really outstanding. And just to compare him to the guy on the other side, Taliesin Fuanga 8.3 percent pressure rate. So Penning's number is actually better, and Taliesin's number is the second lowest amongst all qualified rookie offensive or rookie tackles in the NFL. So Penning playing extremely well right now, and that's exactly what New Orleans needed.
Yeah, I agree. And look, they got boosts from players. Again, we talked about Kevin Austin Jr. I was happy to see Jordan Mims get involved too. Like he had a couple of nice little runs there. You get some stuff working. And again, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I mean, this is a guy that was on the street, weeks ago, and the Saints had a lot of interest in him before he did choose to sign with Kansas City. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if it doesn't work here, then he's probably got another team that looks. But I mean, it wasn't just the because Derek Carr threw a dime to him, right? Like, I mean, on both of those, but route that he ran. I mean, he had 3 Falcons defenders around him on that first catch. I mean, this is exciting to see. And I know he only had those catches, but there were big catches. And I mean, even when the Falcons looked like they were going to get back into it, here's a big bomb, 67 yards for it. So it's just, getting the contributions from guys you weren't normally going to get in the first place. And look, Taysom Hill hasn't been that big of a factor in this one. I know I saw a question in the chat earlier. Do you think it's more of just how they're playing and calling this game, or is it just kind of how the nature of the game flow goes? Because I still think he's active. I just don't think he's getting as many touches as obviously they need to, since they're focusing on Alvin.
Yeah. I would say that's pretty much what I would say in this one. I mean, there weren't a lot of short yardage situations in this one. And look, they went to him. It was so funny. I saw people kind of talking about how like, oh, they shouldn't have gone with Taysom on the 4th and 1. It's too predictable and all that stuff. Knowing dang right well that had they turned around and tossed the ball to Alvin Kamara for a tackle for a loss or tried to throw the football and eventually ended up with a sack, at the very first thing anybody would have said was, why not run with Taysom? It's 4th and 1, just short yardage situation. It's like, no,
Hindsight,
they used
man.
Taysom. Right. Yeah. No, they did the right thing in that situation. I think getting Taysom a little bit more involved in the passing game looks like it's been a bit of a focus over the course of the past few weeks since he came back from his injury. But yeah, I think they'll continue to utilize him. And look, they put him out there too on a couple of different situations where they were trying to run the ball and chew up some clock and everything like that. They had him go in on the 2nd down where they were trying to run the clock out just before the 3rd down pass to Alvin Kamara down the left sideline and all that. So I think they utilized them just fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with the way that they're using them. They could use them more and everything, but I think that'll come with time too. But no real issue with the way that the Saints are utilizing. The one thing that I will say though is that I do miss seeing Taysom in the backfield. Like we saw early on in the beginning of the season. I think that's something they could get back to, is utilizing him back there. But I get it. I mean, you also have Alvin Kamara, so you might as well give the ball to Alvin Kamara. So I understand that. But yeah, maybe that's one place where you could use him. And then we were talking about, just because I want to make sure we hit on Derek Carr a little bit here. I thought Derek Carr had a really good game. Like I mentioned, a few of those out routes and stuff like that still behind, but he was 8 of 13 for 125 yards and a touchdown against the blitz. And the Falcons blitz almost 50% of their defensive snaps in this game. And on those blitzes generated 2 pressures. Almost 50% of their defensive snaps were with the blitz, and they got 2 pressures off those blitzes, according to Next Gen Stats. So really good protection and really good job handling those blitzes from Derek Carr with a really good stat line off the blitz.
Yeah, I mean, he was on fire in the first half. I mean, he looked outstanding. I mean, definitely and he was playing a lot with a lot of emotion today. I mean, he had something going on with his dad, and obviously it was weighing on him a bit. And he said after the game that was for him, his dad in his opening statement. And so clearly it was a big emotional day for him. And so, again, it's good to see him playing at that level. And, again, you'd swear him and MVS have been together for 10 years, the way he was working that pipeline. So it's good to see that. I mean, I just hope it continues. You know what I mean? Like, you got Kevin Austin Jr. involved, not as much Mason Tipton. You kind of called that out in our pregame or preview show that they kind of need to use him a little bit more or different. But I mean, hopefully it comes sooner rather than later, because, Chris Olave is not going to be back. We'd be surprised if he comes back at all this season, and you're going to have to make do with what you do have. And, Dante Pettis is a guy that wasn't going to be in the plans, but RIZZ even talked about that. It's like guys that weren't on the training camp roster impacting, like a John Ridgeway, a MVS, a Kevin Austin Jr., a guy that worked his tail off. I mean, we saw him in training camp. We knew what he was capable of. It's just, it was a matter of consistency, but he's been on the practice squad and learning and growing and just doing all those things. He's got a great mentor and coach Dub, Keith Williams. And so it's good to see all of that come to fruition, if you will. And so there's a lot of football left to be played. I think when you look at how they can go, I'm not going to tell you that they're going to run the table, but how they can do that is it's going to lie heavily on 4 and 41, and then what you can do defensively. But if they can get that offensive line kept together, I mean, I don't know, it's possible, but there's just so many different variables that come into play. But I think if Carr plays well and you get what you need out of Alvin, I think they have a chance at least to not be a lethargic offense that we've seen over the past months.
Yeah, look, this was a team that was at risk of being last in the division today, right? Because Carolina wins early on in the morning over in Munich, and then the Saints play, and they had the chance to go down to 2-8 to fall behind Carolina, everything, and they kept themselves alive. And look, could they go on a run? Sure. Is it necessary that they do? I also don't think so. But you don't play for the draft position. You play for the possibility of actually like playing yourself into a better position here as a team. And I think that's got to be the top thing. I had somebody ask me, if the Saints were to continue to winning, aren't you worried about their draft position? And I'm like, no, because I don't really care. like if I'm a player or if I'm a coach, especially these players and these coaches, they don't know what lies on the other side of this offseason for them. So playing for draft position, which no player and no coach is really going to want to do, doesn't make any sense. And you play for the players that are next to you, not the players that you might be next to next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's not the way that you do this. And so I'm all about this team continuing to compete and doing what it's got to do. This might be the last game they win this season. It's fine. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is.
Hope not.
Yeah. I hope not too. Don't get me wrong. But, like, that's kind of just where this team is, to where they have an opportunity to not be that team that loses out and, drops to the bottom of the division and all that other stuff. But I think that's what they should play for. I don't think they have to have anything else that they have to worry about playing for. The only people that are playing for draft position is maybe like some fans and stuff like that. But players, coaches that don't know if they're even going to be here to benefit from that draft position, they should not be playing it or even thinking about that. They should be worried about competing for the rest of the season. And this looks like a team that's ready to do it. My biggest question mark for them is how consistently you're going to be able to produce in the passing game with the wide receivers. Great to see Marquez Valdez-Scantling have this great game. But 109 receiving yards all came on 3 passes in the first quarter, in the first half, and then not seen again, not targeted again, not no more catches throughout the rest of the game, stuff like that. And so they've got to be able to do something a little bit more consistently there. But if they're able to do that, and if the run defense can kind of button up a little bit more, then I think that, this is a team that should be able to compete more, maybe more than people think that they can against some of the better teams left in their schedule. But otherwise they have a winnable schedule moving forward. So go out there, compete, and win what you can.
Yeah. And look, I mean, we've talked about it, wrote about it, and we have said it on here for sure. But NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, he put a story out this morning that the Saints don't plan on stripping this thing down. Like they said, retool was the word. And I said, I don't care whether you call it a rebuild, retool, reshuffle. I don't care. But he said retool, and that they believe that, they can be in a different position. And obviously they're going to do the cap stuff. I know it's going to drive everybody crazy, but it's what do you make of that, first of all?
Well, okay. I'll pour a little bit of reality on this one, and
do it
at the behest of many, I'm sure. But I don't think that it says much that they're saying that they're not going to tear it all down and rebuild. They kind of can't. Like they legitimately don't really have a way to do that, right? Mm-mm. Like this is not a situation to where you can come out and cut your starting quarterback and cut all these other players and then end up on the right side of the salary cap to start adding pieces back. At this point, the players that you cut aren't saving you money, they're costing you money, and you have to make money going into next season. And so restructuring Derek Carr is probably what they're going to have to do. That immediately means that they're probably not fully rebuilding and everything, because that's really the only way they can get under the salary cap, unless Derek Carr is willing to help them out from the contract side. But he has no reason to do that at all. Yeah. The Saints agreed to pay him that money. They should pay him that money as far as he's concerned, or his team's going to be concerned, certainly as far as his family's concerned. And so I think that that the statement of we're not going to tear it down, we're not going to rebuild, sounds very puff my chest out, like we're still out here, yada yada. But really, it's just kind of the reality of the situation. They don't have, basically what it is that this is a team right now that's in need of a new roof, but the best that they can do is repaint the ceiling, and so that's what they're going to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That one doesn't say much to me. Is kind of what I mean to say.
Yeah, and I'd have to look up Carr's contract. I think he's got a void year tacked onto it for 2027 because of the restructure. I think that they, if they do a restructure again, they're still having to push some more different ones. And so you're going to pay Derek Carr until 2028. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is on that one, but you're right. You can't. And again, we've said it, Ryan Ramczyk, the best case scenario there is he waits to retire, lowers his base salary for like James Hurst did, and then retire post June 1st so he can save this team some money. You know what I mean? That would be but he doesn't have to do that. It was Derek Carr doesn't have to do anything. Like you said, you were going to pay him this money, all this other stuff. And it's like Rounders, pay that man his money. That's what you're going to have to do one way or another. But they have a lot of things. I think there's just a lot of variables here. And, again, they're going to have to figure out what they want to do. I bring this up because it's valid, like a Peyton Turner. You see RIZZ and look, the relationship, I can tell you that is from all the work Peyton Turner does on special teams. That's probably where that bond comes from. But if Peyton Turner finishes strong, would the Saints make a play to re-sign him as an affordable option? I'd say define what's affordable, because I think if you try to keep Chase Young first, that's where I would go. What happens with Cam? I don't think you can bring him back on this price tag. They're going to have to either, and I think Cam, I don't think he's going to retire, but he's not going to be able to play at the cap hit that he has. So what does that look like? Turner's a free agent. Chase Young's a free agent. You haven't got anything out of Isaiah Foskey. I mean, there's a lot of variables, but would you try to re-sign Peyton Turner at this point because of he's an affordable option?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. Why not? Might as well. Like I said, they got paint budget, man. Like they're gonna have to do those kinds of things. And then it depends too on in all honesty, it's gonna depend too, like who's the defensive coordinator, what do they want their defense to look like, what's the prototype of their defensive ends, what does that mean, all those other things. So like it's tough to really know like what would work for New Orleans. But I mean, getting a familiar face back on a team friendly deal, that's probably the most cost effective way to go about things. But you have to keep the deal actually cost effective and not, some kind of a, 2-year contract that's on a 5-year plan because of void years and all this stuff. Like if you're going to return them, you got to return them on a 1-year deal that's just straight up for what it is and everything. And so I think it's absolutely possible. But it's going to depend upon what the new, is it still Joe Woods? Is it a new defensive coordinator? We just don't know. We have no idea who's going to actually be making those decisions.
Too many variables. That's the biggest thing. And again, it's going to depend because I mean, we said it, this is a 3-month process if you're evaluating the talent, the coaches, and the direction that you're going to go into, because Mickey Loomis has already said they're not trying to do a coaching search right now. They're going to wait until the end of the season. Now, whether that's really truthful or not, I mean, Rizzi's auditioning for the job, whether he's, everybody wants to admit that or not, but we'll kind of see how things happen, I guess, if you will. But, again, the salary cap stuff, we've ran that down. We're going to have a full entire episode when it comes time to show you how they're going to get under the cap, how they can make space, all that fun stuff. But that's a conversation for another day. But, Peyton Turner, maybe. I still don't know what affordable looks like, and I think there's more pressing priorities. If I'm stacking him up versus bringing like a Chase Young or a Will Harris or a Willie Gay Jr. back to the mix, I think he's probably lower man on the totem pole. Yep, not probably he is. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think there's more pressing guys to bring back on the roster before I'd say I'd look at a Peyton Turner. And so again, we'll have to find out how that is. Ross, it's been a while since we've been able to do this, but game balls, give me 2 on offense, 2 on defense.
Be still my heart.
I mean, I could do the whole entire game balls to everyone probably, but
yeah,
probably easy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the easiest ones right now are like, got to give Alvin Kamara a game ball, all-time leading rusher. I know he dropped the pass. I get it. He owned up to it. It's all good. It's all fine. We'll give him a pass for that one. But I got to go Alvin Kamara. Also over 100 scrimmage yards again in this game, 55 rushing, 54 receiving. So like, again, just a big time producer for the team. And then I'll go with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I mean, 109 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns, 240 plus yard plays, all that, like just played to his brand. Had a great post-game interview as well, where he talked about like why he chose to come to New Orleans and that like the deep ball was a big reason why, wanting to play with Derek Carr, all this other stuff. So like it all aligned for him in terms of that one. So I got to go MVS. I got to go Kamara. Over on the defensive side, I'll go with Ugo. Ugo, 9 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss. Again, both career highs, had a pass defense and then had the game sealing tackle as well. And then I'll throw Chase Young out there too for the big. I mean, he had the sack fumble, but he also had several pressures during the game, a nice couple plays in the run game and stuff like that too. So I thought both those guys, but in particular on the final drive, they were the game winners for that defense. So I'll give them both some love.
Yeah, look, I can't argue with that. Just to be different, I'd say Tyron and maybe Will Harris would be my guys. Maybe Damari. Damari's close in there, but I think the return of Will Harris was huge for this team. And Tyron's getting a pick, doing what he needs to do to help close out a game. That's where I'd go defensively. Offensively, you got to show Derek Carr some love there. Again, you live, breathe, and die on that one. And then as far as the other one, it's tough to say, I guess. I mean, maybe you roll in the offensive line, because I think I get a game ball for them because of the job that they were able to do against Atlanta. I mean, this is what I don't think Carr got sacked at all today. You know
Nope,
what I
not
mean?
a single
And they
time.
were able to run the ball. I mean, I think that they deserve a lot of love. So I'd give the offensive line a game ball. So
You know what's wild to me?
there's
Think
probably
about
a lot of things, but
think about because he's got such a big personality on camera and he's got a huge personality off the field. But think about everything that Will Harris does on the field and with the camera on, and then like how would you describe him otherwise? Like just in the locker room on his own when we're just kind of like talking to him and stuff like that.
one of the chillest, mellowest dudes out there. Like you'd swear he's just like
so
like a fly on the wall. Like, you know, he just kind of just like just goes away and stuff. And I love that. Like he's actually a good dude. You know, he got a nice little life for him and stuff. He's fun to talk to. But I mean, again, even with him coming into this situation, I mean, this was a guy that was known more as a special teams guy and played for Aaron Glenn. And he was able to take the job from Jonathan Abram, and he was able to become this team starter alongside, you know, Tyrann Mathieu. And so, I mean, just a blue collar type of worker that came in every day and played his tail off and was making plays in training camp, doing the right things, and he earned a spot. And so, again, he's one of those guys I hope that they're able to bring back. I mean, y'all guys remember it was Marcus May back there before. I mean, that wasn't that great. I mean, he was there for those several games and was good, but, you know, just was always hurt. That's what sucks. So.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I was just thinking about that because, you know, just seeing Will a few times and everything like that after games and stuff, and then just how chill he is, and then just watching him absolutely demolish people on the field. It's just like those two things just don't align. But it's interesting because like that's so often the case, right? Like Chris Olave. Chris is super, super calm and super kind of to himself off the field, but then you get him on the field and he's like talking trash and all this other stuff and everything. Yeah. And so like I guess it's the equivalent, but it's just so interesting because he's so violent. He's so violent on the field, but he's so calm. He's so calm.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm thinking of like Trevor's kind of that way too. Like he's really not
true.
Like
Yeah.
Trevor's in that. I'm just like I'm cleaning out the people in the locker room. Like I don't know. You can see some of them. Like Willie's like the complete package, or I think Brian Brzez's probably another one. Like the blue plays so vicious, but when we talk to him, he's like one of the most low key chillest.
He's
dudes.
bubbly. He's bubbly. He's a bubbly dude.
They got a lot of those guys, but I like how you put that out, Will Harris. We have to have some fun with that one day about some of those guys. But Saints get a win. It's nice to be able to talk about a win because we've been beating a dead horse for 7 weeks. Prior to that, mainly the last several weeks have been what has been crappy. Like you guys know as well as I do. But
hey,
good to get a win. Yeah.
One more game ball. We got to give Darren Rizzi a game ball.
Oh, God, yes. RIZZ.
Got to give Darren Rizzi a game ball.
I mean, just the game ball for talking about how he clogged the toilet and being totally unfiltered.
Hey, like one totally game. Unfiltered. I did a graphic on my show that was like 1 game, 1 win, 1 toilet. Just that's a flawless day for Darren Rizzi.
Yeah, no crap about it. That's for sure. He didn't take no crap. That's for sure. But yeah, no, I think so too. I mean, it's big for him, and knowing who RIZZ is, and again, past episodes we talked about it, but again, a cutting example of hard work.
Yep,
he was a D2 guy in coaching. He was an undrafted rookie. He was a walk-on at college. I mean, he didn't, like he said, he never was handed anything, right? And so Parcells tree, all that other stuff. Yep. I mean, he knows what to do to win in this league is getting an opportunity. So, man, good for him. You know, I think he's had some nerves coming into it. I think he had a little bit of emotion too. Like I could see him post game, like that was really emotional for him, and for him to be able to come into this, it's really refreshing to see the Saints be able to put this together under Darren Rizzi and just kind of a new direction. And you just hope it sticks. You hope the ride doesn't end, but the Browns are going to be next up on the list, and they'll be a interesting challenge as it is. I saw somebody said, well, this is Jameis Winston revenge game. And somebody's like, can you really make that argument if DA is not here anymore? I'm like,
That's funny. You
Fair.
can. Yeah. I'd say
Yeah,
anytime a player plays against his former team, you call it a revenge game.
Sure,
Just for fun. But I think you're right. Now that DA is not in the building, I think you're gonna have more people. I guess no matter what, you would have had more. I think there's gonna be more people on the Saints that are gonna be happy to see Jameis than are gonna be like upset with Jameis or anything like that. I think
gonna be
DA
happy
would
to
have
see
been
Jameis too.
Yeah, I think DA was the one exception.
Man. All right. Well, on that note, Ross, what's coming up on LouisianaSports.net and on Locked On, man?
So we got post-game show over on Locked On. We'll dive deeper into the tape. I'll watch some of the tape tonight and tomorrow morning, and then do another show tomorrow morning just to bring a little bit more kind of insight to especially like what happened on the defensive line and in the secondary and stuff like that. Some of the adjustments that were made over on defense. And then I got my column coming out here in a little bit. I'm going to wrap it up here in just a moment tonight. That's going to be all about I think we saw so much of Darren Rizzi talked about growing up a fighter, and I think we saw so much of that fighter mentality reflected by this team. And so it was really cool to see a team take on this team take on the personality of his head coach, and it makes you wonder if that was a missing ingredient for this team with the talent that they've had over the course of the past few years. They just didn't have the personality that they needed calling the shots, and maybe they do for right now. We'll see what happens for the future, but for right now, do they have the right guy? So that's what we're going to be focused on as we continue through the evening and then into stuff. And then John, you and I will have media availability tomorrow on Monday with Darren Rizzi to hear more about the team and all that kind of stuff. So we'll get to all of that as well. What you got coming up over at Saints News Network?
Yeah, look, check out the post-game column writing about this team and just kind of, again, the way that doing the right results, like the right process will get you the right results, the right talent and right coaching and stuff. I mean, it's not hard, I feel like. And again, I don't want to sit here and just, bad mouth or anything like that with the previous thing. But
right.
Again,
of course.
Just the simplicity of getting somebody who has a little bit of edge and swagger to him, right, as a coach, I think it helps echo and reinforce your team, like the way that, your team is playing like your coach.
Yep.
I guess if that makes any sense. And so just going to be looking at some more of those dynamics, and still working on a piece about these rookies and kind of the progress that they're making in check-ins and all that good stuff. So a lot more media availability Monday. We got Wednesday. We'll be back and all that good stuff. And Veterans Day on Monday. So happy Veterans Day to everybody for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we'd be remiss in not saying that too, and stuff. So yeah, man. Well, man, I appreciate all you guys tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. It was really cool hanging out with everybody on the different social platforms today. I know it was a lot. So thank you for hanging with us and trying. I know it's discombobulation, but we'll get it one of these days. You can't stream on those yet, but at any rate, guys, we really appreciate you. You guys are awesome. Can't thank you enough. And Saints fans, best fans, we appreciate y'all. And we will talk at you again very soon. On behalf of Ross Jackson, John Hendricks signing out for Second and Saints. Y'all have a good one, guys. Have a good one and enjoy the victory.
Love you.
At Kroger Pharmacy, CARE is making it easy to get vaccinated. CARE is helping you stay protected from flu, COVID, and RSV. Seasonal vaccines are available 7 days a week with evening hours. CARE is giving you a shot at staying healthy this season. Walk in whenever is best and get multiple vaccines in one visit at your local Kroger Pharmacy. So come and get the protection you need while protecting those around you. Kroger Health, a world of care is in store. Visit Kroger.com/vaccines for more. Restrictions and exclusions apply. See site for details.
This is a story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.